So whenever you notice that most of your thoughts are around prescription of people's behavior and requiring people to behave in a certain way, even when you haven't had a meaningful conversation with them or you haven't agreed with them on those terms, particularly when you feel that they should know, they have to know, then it's a sign. Try to script your thoughts. When you have these huge thoughts that are unsurmountable, write them down and look at the positives and the negatives of maintaining that thought. Sometimes when you look at the positives and the negatives of maintaining the thought, you soon find that the thought is not as scary as you see it or as your mind makes it seem. Hello everyone, you're all welcome to Unfiltered Psyche, where we talk to you about mental health things that may be common but may not necessarily come up in the therapy room. And today we want to talk about some subtle signs we can observe when our mental health is under attack. So one of the interesting things is that once our mental health is under attack, you are likely to see it manifest in our thoughts life. And we may begin to pick up certain thought patterns which are not very regular with us. And today we want to talk about two of such thought patterns, and in the subsequent weeks we will talk about other thought patterns. So for today, one of the important thought patterns that you are likely to observe when your mental health is under attack is what is called catastrophizing. So catastrophizing basically means that looking at things in bigger forms than they actually are. And typically when we are going through a difficult time, when our mental health is under attack, you're likely to look at things in more bigger terms than they really are. So for example, you would find that when your mental health is under attack and you have something like an interview, you're likely to think that, oh, okay, what if I get there and there are 15 people there? What if I get there and my dress is not as nice as it's supposed to be? What if I fumble? What if I get there and I'm unable to present myself the way I should? That is catastrophizing. So it's basically looking at the experience even as something that is likely to end in doom even before it has really happened, and looking at the experience in way bigger terms than it actually is. So catastrophizing is one of the ways you are likely to know that your mental health is under attack. So whenever you feel stressed, whenever you are going through a difficult time and you notice that your thoughts are becoming more worse than the actual situation is, or people begin to tell you that I think this may not happen, or this is not likely to happen, or oh, you're overthinking this, it should tell you that your mental health is under attack, especially when it becomes more predominant in your thinking style. Then you should begin to consider talking to someone or building a bit more stronger social support so that you can be calmed by those who may be closer to you and may have your interest at heart. So catastrophizing is one of the main characteristics of being under some form of severe mental stress or demand. Now the second one is what is called the fallacy of should. So when our mental health is under attack, particularly with fallacy of should, you're likely to find it happening among people or among persons who may have experienced a lot of disappointment or have had expectations of people which have gone unmet, or have looked forward to things they haven't really had in a while. So if you've been through situations like that, maybe you've been through a difficult breakup, or you've been through a lot of job loss or demands from people, and you feel that your expectations of people have not been met, chances are you are likely to fall for this way of thinking called fallacy of should. So fallacy of should basically means that you're likely to look at everything in scripted form. You're likely to consider things that you have thought of as the way they should be. So when you are dealing, for example, in a relationship and you've been through a few losses, once you start seeing someone else, you script how they should behave. So you would have it in mind that if the person loves you, then they should call you at a certain time, then they should maintain a certain kind of conversation, then they should treat you in a certain way. And it's all because of some form of disappointment or expectations you had of people that they didn't meet. And so now your nervous system or your mind shifts to prescribing things so that you can feel safe. So that is fallacy of should. So whenever you notice that most of your thoughts are around prescription of people's behavior and requiring people to behave in a certain way, even when you haven't had a meaningful conversation with them or you haven't agreed with them on those terms, particularly when you feel that they should know, they have to know, then it's a sign that that is fallacy of should, and that can be detrimental. So with these two thought patterns, what is likely to happen is that they are likely to plunge you into very severe anxiety situations. So for catastrophic thoughts, you're likely to feel easily demoralized because whatever you want to do seems so big in your eyes and seem sometimes unsurmountable, and sometimes none numbing, okay, emotionally numbing, sort of cripples you, as it were. So that can plunge you into an acute anxiety situation, and then if it persists over a long period of time, could plunge you into a depressive state. Now, with fallacy of shoulder, the same thing. Usually it is anxiety that is shrouded in some form of strength. So it is a fear of not being treated the way that you've been treated in the past, guarding against that, and that is anxiety, but then it is shrouded in a strength to maintain yourself and to maintain your dignity and preventing people from treating you the way they want because you've been treated in a certain way in the past and you condoned it in a way. So guarding against that so strongly, that is also anxiety, but it is coated in some form of power and control. And once that persists over time, you're likely to feel frustrated because people cannot really do what you think. People cannot assume your frame of reference or your way of thinking and act in exact way as you're thinking. So if once that thought pattern is held onto, you're likely to feel frustrated, you're likely to feel demoralized, you're likely to feel disrespected all the time, and then that will result in more anxiety because then you don't know what to expect from people, and then also it could result in some form of resentment and anger against people because you feel they are not doing what you want them to do. So these are two thinking patterns that are likely to show up whenever a person is going through some form of stress or has been through some form of stress from the past. It may be traumatic stress from the past and may want to guard against it in the future. Now, how do we deal with these kinds of thoughts? So for catastrophic thoughts, the first one is that make every effort to look at your thoughts within context. There's something we call metacognition. Okay, you may want to read on that if you have the time. So question your thoughts. Look at your thoughts from a third party perspective, from a bystander perspective. So when you feel like, oh, I'm not going to pass this exam, nobody really passes this exam, look at the failure rate and all of that. Now that thought can be crippling, but look at it from a third party perspective. Put the details on paper. Ask yourself, how many exams have you really failed, and why do you feel this way? Are you really incompetent? And sometimes you're able to do this when you allow others into your thoughts. So throw your thoughts to others and have them analyze it with you. Then you'll soon find that sometimes the way you may be thinking of the situation may just be because of an experience you've had, and it may not really be the reality. That is one. The next one is that try to script your thoughts. When you have these huge thoughts that are unsurmountable, write them down and look at the positives and the negatives of maintaining that thought. Sometimes when you look at the positives and the negatives of maintaining the thought, you soon find that the thought is not as scary as you see it or as your mind makes it seem. So that is the second one. And then the third one is that try to process your emotions. Okay, so when you have those kinds of thoughts, because they can be crippling and they can sometimes keep you in a state, try to think when you are walking, think when you are listening to some music, have something in the background that does not keep you in that thought. So try to think, like I said, when you are walking, maybe when you are driving, when you are maybe listening to music. And then finally, when those thoughts begin to flood you and they really cripple you, decide that you have a time to think. We call that deferred thinking. So whenever you have that thought, hey, I haven't paid my child's school fees, hey, they are not going to do well in life, can I ever support them? When those thoughts begin to cross your mind, just decide that you find time to think about those things. So when they cross your mind, just write it down that, okay, I need to think about my children's school fees, how to pay my children's school fees, and I'm going to think about this on Wednesday 7 p.m. So when the thought crosses your mind, you say to yourself, well, I recognize you are here, but I'm going to think about this Wednesday 7 p.m. By the time Wednesday 7 p.m. comes, you would find that all your mental strength will align with you, because whenever we defer our thinking, we come to that place where we have the capacity to draw resources. Sometimes unconsciously we talk to people, sometimes unconsciously we notice things that will give us the resource, the mental resource, the emotional resource to think properly. So whenever you defer your thinking over the period as you are waiting for that day to sit and really think, you're likely to have or draw strength from various places that can help you think properly. Now, so that is how to deal with catastrophic thinking or catastrophizing. And then when it comes to fallacy of should, one of the best ways to deal with fallacy of should, which is scripting, is that always ask yourself when you are dealing with people, when you feel, why didn't you do this, why didn't you do, ask yourself, have I scripted? Always ask yourself that question. I'm holding this person to this particular standard, but have I scripted scripted or have actually discussed this and the person is on the same level with me, the person understands where I'm coming from. So whenever you notice that you are saying should, must, you should have, you must, you should have, you must, sit back and ask yourself, am I scripting for this person? And whenever you notice you are scripting for a person, it means you are unfairly judging the person because you haven't given the person all the resources to align with you before you hold them to a certain standard. So whenever you notice that you are using a lot of should and must for people, it means that you are scripting. And ask yourself, have I scripted for this person, or am I scripting or prescribing a certain behavior which may be unrealistic and seemingly unfair? And you'll be able to let go of that and then begin to have more meaningful relationships or conversations with people that can help harness your relationship with them. I hope this is useful, and I hope you are able to overcome these things. When you notice that they becoming pervasive, I really want to advise you that you talk to your mental health professional about it, particularly now that you know that there's something called catastrophic thinking and there's something called fallacy of should. Thank you very much for watching Unfiltered Psyche, and I hope this is useful to you.